If we are victorious in one more battle with the Romans, we shall be utterly ruined. These were the words of King Pyrrhus of Epirus after his victory at the Battle of Asculum in 279, as he confronted the uncomfortable reality that the upstart Roman Republic felt no compulsion to sue for peace with the Hellenistic king, despite his repeated triumphs over the legions. While ancient convention would dictate that multiple victories in the field should settle a conflict, the Romans steadfastly refused to entertain the idea of coming to the bargaining table. Pyrrhus now understood something fundamental about the Roman character that the wider Mediterranean was soon to learn. The Romans did not need to win every battle. They just needed to win the last one, and there was seemingly no shortage of men willing to fight and die under the banner of Rome to achieve the aims of the Republic. Pyrrhus, finding ruin, even in his success, coined the term Pyrrhic victory, a phrase that is commonly used even among those who don't know its origins. But though Pyrrhus certainly despaired at the seemingly limitless resolve of the Republic as he abandoned Italy for his homeland, in an irony of history, the people of Epirus would indeed play a small part in the downfall of the Roman Republic, and fittingly, these seeds of ruin would come through a Roman victory that seemed so absolute at the time, but would end up having profound consequences that none could have foreseen. For after Rome's triumph in the Third Macedonian War in 168, soldiers under the command of the victorious general Lucius Aemilius Paullus brought back an unprecedented haul of treasure and wealth, an astronomical sum that was made up in no small part through the systematic looting and pillaging of 70 Epirot cities. In one horrifying day, the wealth and people of an entire region became the property of Rome. Wishing to set upon the inhabitants all at once and suddenly, when no one expected it, he sent for the 10 principal men of each city, and ordered them to bring in on a fixed day whatever silver and gold they had in their houses and temples. He also sent with each of these bodies, as if for this very purpose, a guard of soldiers and an officer, who pretended to search for and receive the money. But when the appointed day came, at one and the same time, these all set out to overrun and pillage the cities, so that in a single hour 150,000 persons were made slaves, and 70 cities were sacked. Much to the chagrin of his soldiers, Paullus reserved the overwhelming bulk of the loot from both Epirus and Macedon for the Roman treasury. The men were even so dissatisfied with his stinginess that they sought to deny him the honor of a triumph, despite the overwhelming nature of his victory over the Macedonians. But the loss of the soldiers was to the gain of the Republic at large, as the influx of this wealth allowed for Rome to suspend the tributum, the tax that it levied upon all citizens to pay the costs associated with maintaining the legions. To understand the full significance of this, we get to talk about something very fun, the intricacies of domestic tax policy in the Middle Republic. Unlike modern taxes, the tributum was not set at a fixed rate. Rather, it was adjusted on an annual basis according to the projected costs associated with military activity for the coming year. In theory, it could have been eliminated many times before, but Rome was almost constantly at war, and so the tax remained a certainty, just like the deaths it financed. For in this era of republican expansion, wars had not yet begun to consistently pay for themselves in the short term. Until recently, Rome's chief enemies had been Italian confederations, as well as Gallic and Celtiberian tribes. Though there were certainly material rewards for these conquests, these early foes lacked the movable wealth needed to put the treasury immediately in the black. Not every opponent had the resources of Carthage, after all. Another aspect of tributum, which made it distinct from modern taxes, is that in theory it was actually a loan, albeit a compulsory one. Citizens who paid the tributum were entitled to receive back their contributions after the conclusion of the war. with the captured people, wealth, and resources of the enemy combining to refund the Roman populace for their share of the tributum. However, either because of the uncertainties of war, sticky fingers among Roman soldiers, or intentionally opaque accounting, it seems that tributum was rarely redistributed back. We know that the level of contribution each citizen was compelled to make was determined by his place within the centuriate wealth ranking system that also apportioned how the Romans voted. This meant that the wealthy paid more, but of course they could afford to. For the poorer citizens, even their smaller share could pinch their resources much more than the larger taxes of the rich. In a world where starvation and economic ruin were always just one bad harvest away for the poor, every single expense mattered. It is little wonder, then, that we find records of plebeian tribunes consistently opposing tributum. The tax was unpopular, helping to indicate how rarely the poor actually tasted the fruits of empire supposedly being won in their name. But with the defeat of the wealthy Macedonian king Perseus and the looting of Epirus, Rome had struck gold. Literally, there was now such a remarkable increase in available hard currency that Rome could suspend the unpopular tributum tax.
If you're enjoying this video, please do us a favor by liking, commenting, and subscribing. We're a small channel, and this is the only way to get the almighty YouTube algorithm to notice us. Furthermore, you can help Tribunate become more sustainable by becoming a member for as little as 99 cents a month. Thank you for all of your support.
Though born of untold suffering, this, on its surface, was a victory for the popular campaigners. It helps illustrate that despite solidarity among the plebeian poor, they had no sense of connection to members of their class outside the Roman polity. Indeed, other advances for the Roman poor, such as the introduction of the grain dole, would only be possible by ratcheting up exploitation of foreigners. But as promising as the decision to abolish tributum may have seemed at the time, it was actually a double-edged sword. For now that the state paid a less prominent role in financing Rome's wars, it also paid less attention to accounting for the booty captured by the legions. Decades later, Polybius contrasted the integrity of Aemilius Paullus and his biological son Scipio Aemilianus, the conqueror of Carthage, with the new generation of Roman commanders that took personal possession of war booty and used it to enrich themselves. Lucius Aemilius Paullus, the conqueror of Perseus, for when he became master of the palace of the Macedonian kings, in which, apart from the splendid furniture and other riches, more than 6,000 talents of gold and silver were fortified in the treasury alone. Not only did he not covet any of his treasure, but did not even wish to look upon it, and disposed of it all by the hands of others. And this, although his private fortune was by no means ample, but on the contrary rather meager. At least when he died not long after the war, and his sons by birth, Publius Scipio and Quintus Fabius Maximus, wished to give back to his wife her dowry of 25 talents, they found such difficulty in raising the sum that they could not possibly have done it had they not sold the household goods, the slaves, and some real property in addition. If what I say seems incredible to anyone, he can easily assure himself of its truth. For though many facts, and especially those concerning this matter, are subjects of dispute at Rome, owing to their political dissensions, still, on inquiry, you will find that the statement I have just made is acknowledged to be true by all. Again, take the case of Publius Scipio, Aemilius's son by birth, but grandson by adoption of Publius Scipio, known as the Great. When he became master of Carthage, which was considered the wealthiest city in the world, he took absolutely nothing from it to add to his own fortune, either by purchase or by any other means of acquisition. And this, although he was not particularly well off, but only moderately so for a Roman. And not only did he keep his hands off the treasure in Carthage itself, but in general allow any of that from Africa to be mixed up with his private fortune. In the case of this man, again, anyone who really inquires will find that no one disputes the reputation he enjoyed at Rome in this respect. To be sure, commanders had always enjoyed some degree of freedom in appropriating the wealth of conquered territories, deciding how much to keep for themselves and how much to distribute among their troops after the debt to the Republic's coffers had been settled. Manubae was the Latin term for the share of the spoils of war that a commander was entitled to claim and dispose of as he saw fit. Like many other aspects of Roman governance, this was never explicitly defined by law. Instead, tradition, custom, and fear of social sanction would have influenced how much wealth a commander claimed after the tributum outlays that had supported his efforts had been satisfied. But with the suspension of tributum, commanders gained a freer hand in how much wealth they could accumulate, for they no longer had to concern themselves with the anger of voters who wanted their contributions refunded. This development, combined with increasing Roman military activity in the wealthier eastern Mediterranean, resulted in wars more reliably paying for themselves. Without public funds to repay, commanders gained ever greater wealth, and hence there was greater political competition for the lucrative command positions that could elevate a man to wealth and prestige. The troops themselves also received ever greater shares of this booty, making them feel an increasing degree of loyalty to their generals than the Republic as a whole. Rome became caught in a feedback loop, where military success abroad increased the domestic political power of conquering commanders, destabilizing the rough parity among the aristocracy that prevented any one clan from maintaining a dominant position for too long. An inner oligarchy emerged among its oligarchs. For, in addition to the obvious material comforts made possible through greater wealth, successful commanders were able to strengthen their political positions by using their money to make the bribes necessary for electoral success, as well as to enhance their public image through the construction of public buildings and the sponsorship of games, distribution of food, and other forms of largesse for the Roman people. It should be noted, of course, that this decay began slowly at first and took over a century to reach its logical conclusion in Julius Caesar. But the roots of the problem that began with the suspension of tributum in 168 gave rise to the instability that is so clearly associated with the period of permanent republican crisis from 90 onwards. Indeed, it was a lust for war booty that precipitated the unprecedented dictatorship of Sulla, which provided the final blueprint for republican collapse. Sulla had been placed in charge of a potentially lucrative campaign against Mithridates of Pontus, but when this command was legally transferred to Marius, Sulla marched on Rome and plunged the Republic into civil war. Even ancient sources sympathetic to Sulla fully admit that he motivated his troops to march on Rome and murder a sacrosanct tribune of the people by implying that without him as their commander, they too would miss out on the opportunity to plunder the wealthy Pontic kingdom. The man who today is regarded by some armchair historians as a defender of the old republic is plainly shown to begin a civil war not out of political principle, but a desire to pillage the East. The tempting wealth of Pontus would foment another political crisis in Rome when Pompey used political machinations to usurp Lucullus as the Roman commander in the Third Mithridatic War. Lucullus had been successful in battle after battle, but was unpopular with the troops, and Pompey, coveting the opportunity to ransack Mithridates' realm, managed to secure the job in 66. Lucullus would return from the east without a final victory, but with such staggering wealth that his name became a byword in Rome for extravagance, as he spent his retirement trying to put his fortune to use on ostentatious luxuries and indulgences Rome had never seen before. Pompey would not return to Rome until 62, having toured much of the East after defeating Mithridates. His conquests and diplomacy brought much new territory under the Republic's sway, and made him the wealthiest man in Rome, surpassing even Crassus. Over the next decade, Pompey would leverage his wealth to ensure that he always remained at the center of Roman politics. His network of alliances helped Julius Caesar secure the governorships of 3 different provinces after his consulship in 59, allowing for him to wage war on Gaul and build up his own personal fortune to a level that matched Pompey and Crassus by plundering Gallic shrines and selling up to 1 million people into slavery. As the Republican era drew to a close after the civil war of Pompey and Caesar, and then the conflict between Antony and Augustus, the new princeps understood the destabilizing nature of a system that allowed commanders to accumulate so much wealth. Because precedent and tradition could no longer be relied on to prevent generals from becoming wealthy off foreign conquest, Augustus limited the ways in which captured booty could be spent, insisting that it be used to finance public road projects. As his position at the top solidified, he was also able to insist that the generals were in essence his personal deputies, so their victories were in reality his own, and the spoils belonged to him as princeps. In this roundabout fashion, war booty again returned to the public treasury. Lucius Aemilius Paullus would have been appalled at the far-reaching consequences of his pillaging of Macedon and Epirus, but the Pyrrhic nature of his victory manifesting itself over a century later drives home the futility of searching out causes for Republican collapse. Only within the few decades prior to 31, the men who spearheaded the demise of the Republic were all free actors, but they did not have free hands. Instead, they labored under conditions determined decades and centuries in advance. Caesar and Augustus certainly made history. No one should dispute that. But they did not make the conditions that made this history possible.